Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES Defiant, watching the pristine ships of the Galactic Coalition glide past her vessel like schools of metallic fish. Each one's hull gleamed with photonic coating that adjusted to stellar radiation, while her ship's paint peeled in long strips that resembled the shed skin of some ancient reptile. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. "Captain," Lieutenant Rivera called from his communication station, trying to hide his amusement. "The Arcanian delegation is demanding to know why we haven't cleared their docking path yet. They say we're disrupting the aesthetic harmony of the approach vector." Sarah turned from the viewport, her weathered uniform creasing at the shoulders. "Tell them the Defiant moves at her own pace. Some of us still believe in being fashionably late." The bridge crew chuckled, the sound mixing with the ever-present hum of the ship's outdated fusion drive. The Defiant was the last Challenger-class vessel still in service, a relic from humanity's early days of interstellar travel. While other ships boasted quantum engines and AI-driven systems, the Defiant relied on technology that most museum curators would consider vintage. "Incoming transmission from Fleet Command," Rivera announced, his expression turning serious. "Priority 1. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Hassan's stern face. Even through the unstable connection, Sarah could see the concern in his eyes. "Captain Chen, we have a situation. The Proxima Beta colony has gone dark. All communication ceased 12 hours ago." Sarah frowned. Proxima Beta was a joint human-alien research outpost, studying stellar phenomena near the galaxy's core. "Any signs of attack?" "Negative. But the colony's last transmission mentioned unusual quantum readings. We need a ship to investigate." The Admiral paused. "You're the only vessel in range." "With respect, sir, there are 3 Constellation-class cruisers docked at Starbase 7. Any one of them could reach Proxima Beta in half the time. Those ships are assigned to the Coalition's ceremonial fleet review. They can't be reassigned without creating a diplomatic incident." The Admiral's image wavered. "Besides, the Defiant has something those ships don't. A functioning manual override for the coffee maker." Sarah quipped. "Experience, Captain. Real experience. Not simulated, not AI-assisted. Your crew knows how to think on their feet." He leaned forward. "There are 2,000 colonists on Proxima Beta. Find out what happened." After the transmission ended, Sarah turned to her bridge crew. They all knew what the others thought, that sending the Defiant was a joke, that they were being set up for failure. But she saw something different in their eyes. Determination. "Dr. Wong," she called to the ship's lead scientist, who was perpetually tinkering with some jury-rigged device at his station. "How long to Proxima Beta?" Marcus Wong looked up, his wild gray hair seeming to defy gravity. "At maximum sustainable thrust. 36 hours, assuming the port plasma injector holds together. And assuming my modifications to the fuel mix don't cause the entire engine to implode." "Your modifications?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Just a little experiment with quantum catalysis. Nothing to worry about." "Probably." He grinned, the expression making him look more mad scientist than ever. "Did I mention I've increased our efficiency by 12%? You didn't file a report about these modifications, did you? Paperwork tends to interfere with inspiration, Captain. Besides, Coalition safety regulations don't account for human intuition." Sarah shook her head, but she was smiling. This was why the Defiant succeeded where newer ships failed. Her crew wasn't afraid to color outside the lines. "Rivera, send our acknowledgement to Fleet Command. Navigation. Plot a course to Proxima Beta." She settled into her captain's chair, feeling the familiar creak of its supports. "Let's show the galaxy what this rust bucket can do." The Defiant's engines roared to life, their distinctly unmodern sound drawing stares from passing ships. As they cleared the starbase's traffic zone, Sarah caught sight of their reflection in a nearby vessel's polished hull. The Defiant's scarred surface and exposed repair patches made it look like a fossil next to the sleek modern ships. But Sarah knew better. In an age of automated perfection, There was something to be said for imperfection, for systems that could be fixed with a wrench rather than a software update, for a crew that solved problems with their minds instead of their computers. "Doctor," she called to Wang, "how about giving those modified engines a proper test?" Wang's fingers danced across his console, adjusting variables that probably shouldn't be adjusted. "With pleasure, Captain. Though I should mention there's a 17% chance this could cause a minor antimatter containment issue." "Only 17%. You're getting conservative in your old age." The bridge crew braced themselves as Wang initiated his modifications. The Defiant's engines changed pitch, the familiar rumble becoming a deep purr that vibrated through the deck plates. On the main display, their velocity began to climb. "Coalition traffic control is demanding to know what we're doing," Rivera reported. "They say our engine signature doesn't match any approved configuration. Tell them we're conducting an experiment in human resourcefulness." Sarah watched as the stars began to blur, and remind them that sometimes the best solutions aren't found in any manual. As the Defiant accelerated toward Proxima Beta, Sarah thought about what awaited them. 2,000 lives hanging in the balance, a mystery that had stumped the colony's advanced systems, and a ship that most considered obsolete. It was exactly the kind of situation where humanity did its best work. "Hull stress increasing," Wang reported cheerfully, "but within theoretical tolerances, mostly." Sarah smiled. The Defiant might be old, she might be ugly, but she had something no modern ship could match: a soul. And sometimes that made all the difference. The Defiant shuddered as it pushed deeper into the quantum distortion field. On the main screen, sensor readings fluctuated wildly as space itself seemed to twist around them. Dr. Wang hadn't left his station for hours, his fingers constantly adjusting the engine's experimental harmonics. "Hull stress at 80%, Rivera called out, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Structural integrity is holding, but the outer plating is starting to resonate with the field." Sarah watched as patches of the Defiant's hull began to glow with an otherworldly light. The quantum waves washing over them made the ship's numerous repair jobs visible, each weld, patch, and jury-rigged solution creating its own unique interference pattern. "Fascinating," Wang muttered, not looking up from his calculations. "Every imperfection in our hull is acting like a quantum diffraction point. The field can't establish a coherent resonance pattern because there's too much chaos in our structure. So being a mess is actually helping us?" Sarah asked, gripping her chair as another wave hit them. "More than that." Wang's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. "Captain, I think I've figured it out. The colony's research, they weren't just studying stellar harmonics. They were trying to find the universe's fundamental frequency. The perfect resonance." A particularly violent shudder ran through the ship. Through the viewport, they could see the colony's containment dome flickering as the quantum field battered against it. The coalition ships were barely visible now, reduced to distant points of light at the edge of the phenomenon. "Think about it," Wang continued, his words tumbling out faster. "The Arcanians, all the advanced races, they build their ships to be perfect. Quantum-aligned materials, molecularly perfect hulls. But the universe isn't perfect. It's full of chaos, irregularities, imperfections. That's what makes it stable." Sarah leaned forward. "Are you saying the colony accidentally found some kind of perfect frequency that's too perfect for the universe to handle?" "Exactly. And their containment systems, built with the same perfect technology as coalition ships, couldn't hold it. The frequency is spreading, trying to impose perfect order on an imperfect universe." Wang's hands flew across his console. "But this beautiful mess of a ship, we're like a quantum version of white noise." "Coalition ships are reporting critical system failures," Rivera announced. "Their quantum drives are going offline. They're requesting immediate assistance." Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. 2,000 colonists, 3 coalition crews, and now her own people, all depending on this impossible theory. "What's your plan, Doctor?" Wang finally looked up, his expression a mix of terror and excitement. Remember how I modified our engines to achieve that efficiency boost? I wasn't just adjusting the fuel mix. I was experimenting with quantum catalysis, trying to create controlled chaos in the plasma stream. That doesn't sound safe, Sarah noted dryly. Oh, it absolutely isn't, Wang agreed. But now we can use it. If I can tune our engines to amplify their quantum irregularities, generate a field of pure chaos. He paused. Think of it like fighting fire with fire, except we're fighting perfect order with perfect disorder. Another shock wave rocked the ship. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems struggled to compensate. Through the viewport, they could see the colony's dome beginning to crack under the strain. Time to the colony's containment failure, Sarah asked. 7 minutes, Rivera responded. Our hull integrity is down to 60%. Wang's fingers danced across his console, making adjustments that probably violated every safety protocol ever written. I can do this, Captain, but we'll need to get closer, right to the edge of the colony's dome. And, he hesitated, we'll have to shut down all safeties on the engines, run them hot enough to risk a core breach. Sarah looked around her bridge. At Rivera, steady at his post despite the danger. At the navigation officer, hands poised over controls that grew more sluggish by the second. At Wang, brilliant and possibly mad, but never wrong when it really mattered. The Defiant had been called obsolete, a relic, a ship that should have been scrapped years ago. But now those very flaws might be the only thing that could save thousands of lives. How close do you need to get? She asked. Wang's expression was grim. Closer than any sane person would consider safe. We'll have to match the colony dome's quantum signature exactly, become part of its containment system. Like threading a needle, except the thread is an unstable fusion reaction, and the needle is a hole in reality. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Good thing we're not seeing then. She straightened in her chair. Rivera, warn the colony we're coming in. Navigation, plot us a course right to the edge of that dome. Engineering, prepare for full power to the engines on Wang's mark. As the Defiant moved forward, its ancient hull groaning under forces it was never designed to withstand, Sarah thought about all the times they'd been mocked for keeping this old ship in service, about all the suggestions to upgrade, to modernize, to fall in line with coalition standards. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in refusing to be perfect. The Defiant's engines screamed as they pushed against the laws of physics themselves. Dr. Wang's modifications had turned the ship's fusion drive into something that probably violated several fundamental principles of thermodynamics, not to mention every safety regulation in the book. Distance to Colony Dome, 100 meters, navigation reported, voice tense. The view screen showed the massive containment structure, its surface rippling with quantum distortions. 90 meters, 80. Coalition ships are broadcasting warnings, Rivera said from his station. They're saying our approach will destabilize the entire region. The Arcanian Science Council is threatening to file formal charges. Sarah almost laughed. Tell them we'll be happy to attend their hearing, assuming we all survive the next few minutes. She turned to Wang. Status of your quantum chaos field. The scientist's hands hadn't stopped moving for the past hour, constantly adjusting variables that probably shouldn't be adjusted. The engine modifications are holding, barely. We're generating quantum irregularities at a rate that should be impossible. By all known laws of physics, we should have torn ourselves apart 10 minutes ago. So why haven't we? Wang grinned maniacally. Because the laws of physics are more like guidelines, really, especially when you introduce enough chaos into the system. His console sparked, and he casually patted out a small fire, 50 meters to optimal position. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the Defiant approached the massive containment dome. This close, they could see the crystalline structure of its advanced materials beginning to fail, perfect lattices shattering under the strain of containing something that defied perfection itself. Detecting massive energy buildup in the colony's research section, Rivera reported. Their quantum reactor is going critical. We have maybe 3 minutes before total containment failure. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. Wong, whatever you're going to do, working on it. His fingers flew across his console. The problem is synchronization. We need to match the colony's containment frequency exactly, but also be completely out of phase with the quantum disruption. It's like trying to sing harmony with a song that's trying to unmake reality. The ship shuddered violently as another wave of distorted space washed over them. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems struggled to compensate. The Defiant's hull groaned like a living thing in pain. Structural integrity failing, Rivera called out. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Emergency force fields are holding, but they're draining power we need for the engines. Divert power from life support if you have to, Sarah ordered. We won't need it if this doesn't work anyway. Through the viewport, they could see the coalition ships retreating further, their perfect hulls unable to withstand even the edges of the phenomenon. But the Defiant pushed forward, its patchwork of repairs and modifications creating a uniquely chaotic quantum signature. 30 meters to optimal position, navigation announced. 25. 20. Suddenly, Wang's console erupted in a shower of sparks. No. The quantum catalyst is destabilizing. The chaos field isn't strong enough. Sarah watched as the colony's dome began to crack, lines of pure white energy seeping through. Options, Doctor. Wang's hands danced across his sparking controls. We need more chaos in the system, more imperfections. But we're already running the engines beyond their theoretical limits. Any more power, and we risk. He stopped, eyes widening. Unless what? Unless we introduce a different kind of chaos. Wang spun to face her. Captain, remember when I said our hull's imperfections were acting like quantum diffraction points? What if we deliberately damaged the ship? Created new imperfections, new points of chaos? Sarah stared at him. You want to damage our own ship. On purpose. Not damage. Enhance. Every dent, every scratch, every imperfect repair job is helping us fight this thing. If we could create more. He gestured excitedly. The emergency hull charges. They're designed to break up ice formation. But if we detonated them in a specific pattern, we could create a web of controlled damage across the hull. Sarah finished, understanding dawning. Turn the entire ship into one big quantum diffraction array. Exactly. But Captain, Wang's expression grew serious. This would be permanent damage. Even if we survive, the Defiant would never be space-worthy by coalition standards again. Sarah looked around her bridge, at the crew who had never let her down, at the ship that had carried them through impossible situations time and time again. The Defiant was already considered obsolete by modern standards. What was a little more damage in the service of saving lives? How long to reconfigure the hull charges? Wang's fingers flew across his console. 2 minutes, but we'll only get one shot at this. If the pattern isn't perfect in its imperfection. Another shockwave rocked the ship. Through the viewport, they could see the colony's dome beginning to disintegrate, the perfect lattice of its construction turning against it as reality itself rebelled. Coalition ships are broadcasting an evacuation order, Rivera reported. They're saying the situation is beyond containment. Sarah straightened in her chair. Like hell it is. Wang, configure those charges. Rivera, warn all hands to brace for impact. Navigation, hold us steady at 20 meters from the dome. As Wang worked, Sarah opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do goes against every regulation, every safety protocol, and probably several laws of physics. But there are 2,000 people counting on us, and the Defiant has never let anyone down yet. Stand by for some extremely unorthodox maneuvering. She looked at the colony dome, at the forces of perfect order trying to tear reality apart, and at her imperfect, beautiful ship that dared to stand against them. Let's show the universe why humanity never threw away this old rust bucket. Time seemed to slow on the Defiance bridge as Dr. Wong's fingers danced across his console one last time. Hull charges configured. Pattern is as chaotic as I could make it while still maintaining the quantum resonance we need. Sarah nodded, her hand hovering over the command interface. Through the viewport, the colony's containment dome was breaking apart, perfect crystalline structures shattering as reality itself rebelled against their imposed order. Structural integrity at 28%, Rivera reported calmly. Hull breaches on all decks. Emergency force fields are failing. Coalition ships are broadcasting something, Wong said, looking up from his calculations. They're recording us, making sure there's evidence of our reckless actions for the inquiry board. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Let's give them something worth watching then. All hands, brace for impact. Wong, on my mark. The scientist's hand joined hers over the controls. Together, they looked at the disintegrating dome, at the forces of perfect order trying to tear reality apart, and at their imperfect, beautiful ship that dared to stand against them. Now, they triggered the whole charges simultaneously. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Precisely calculated explosions rippled across the Defiant's surface, turning its already patchwork hull into a masterpiece of controlled destruction. Each new dent, each precisely created flaw, became a point of quantum diffraction. The ship's sensors screamed as reality twisted around them. Wong's modified engines poured power into the chaos field, using the newly created imperfections to shape and direct it. The Defiant wasn't fighting against the quantum distortion anymore. It was becoming part of it, using its flaws to channel and redirect the perfect frequency that threatened to unmake everything. Energy patterns are shifting, Wong shouted over the sound of straining metal. The chaos field is expanding. It's working. Through the viewport, they could see their quantum interference patterns spreading outward, meeting the perfect frequency from the colony's experiments. Where order met chaos, reality itself seemed to shiver, finding a new equilibrium between the two extremes. Colony containment is stabilizing, Rivera reported, his voice filled with disbelief. The quantum reactor is powering down. They're regaining control. Sarah watched as their jury-rigged solution took effect. The Defiant's engineered flaws were acting like a pressure release valve for the universe itself, allowing the perfect frequency to dissipate harmlessly into quantum noise. The coalition ships, still maintaining their safe distance, recorded everything. Their sensors captured the moment when humanity's greatest perceived flaw, their embrace of imperfection, became their greatest strength. Message from the colony, Rivera announced. They're reporting full containment of the quantum event. 2,000 lives saved, Captain. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but it was short-lived. The Defiant gave a final, shuddering groan as the last of the quantum energies dispersed. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems began to fail. Status report, Sarah ordered, already knowing what she'd hear. Wong looked up from his smoking console, his expression a mix of triumph and resignation. The good news is we succeeded. The quantum event is fully contained. The bad news, he gestured around them. We broke physics, several times, in ways that would make Einstein cry. The Defiant will never meet coalition safety standards again. We'd be lucky if she'd pass inspection as a garbage SCO. Sarah stood, walking to the viewport that now bore a spider web of cracks across its surface. The Defiant's reflection showed a ship that looked like it had been through a war. Its hull was a maze of intentional damage, its once merely worn appearance now transformed into something that would make safety inspectors faint. But it was beautiful. Captain, Rivera called out, the Arcanian Science Council is demanding we submit to immediate inspection. They're saying our reckless actions violated 17 different safety protocols and at least 3 laws of physics. Tell them we'll be happy to explain our methods, Sarah replied, just as soon as they explain why their perfect ships couldn't even approach the problem. The Defiant limped away from the colony, its engines running on whatever Wong's modifications had turned them into. The Coalition ships maintained their distance, their crews no doubt already writing reports about the dangerous and unpredictable nature of human innovation. But Sarah knew they'd be studying sensor logs of this day for years to come, trying to understand how an obsolete human vessel had succeeded where their perfect technology had failed. They'd analyze every detail, write papers about quantum chaos theory, and probably develop new safety protocols to prevent similar reckless actions in the future. And they'd missed the point entirely. Because humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, or even in their willingness to take risks. It was in their fundamental understanding that perfection wasn't the goal. That sometimes the flaws, the patches, the jury-rigged solutions, these were what made something truly valuable. The Defiant would never be the same. But then again, neither would humanity's place in the galaxy. They had proven that there was more than one way to solve a problem, that sometimes the most elegant solution was the least perfect one. As they limped home, Sarah looked at her crew, tired, triumphant, and already planning repairs that would probably violate several more regulations. She thought about the 2,000 lives they'd saved, and about all the perfect ships that had watched from a safe distance. "You know," she said to no one in particular, "I think we might need a few more patches after this." The bridge crew laughed, the sound mixing with the wheeze of overtaxed engines and the creak of stressed metal. The Defiant sailed on, proud in her imperfection, carrying a crew that had just rewritten the rules of what was possible. Sometimes the greatest flaw was believing in perfection at all.